Okay, hello and welcome to another episode of Hiring and Inspiring. Today's guests, yes, I did say guests because I have two guests on the show today. My esteemed colleagues here at Talent Forge Australia, Levina and Adam Sampana, join me on the show. We're going to be doing a bit of a special episode. It's going to be a review of the year that was 2023. We're going to be talking what's been going on in the world of recruitment. We're going to be doing some personal reviews and the team reviews, and also looking towards the future and 2024, the year ahead. So should firstly mention Adam and Lev both work on the same team as me. We recruit in the technical industry across Australia. Adam has been my esteemed colleague and partner in crime for
Too long.
over 7 years, and Lev relatively new in the team. She's been with us for just over a year. So guys, with that little introduction, welcome to the show. I'm delighted for you guys to join me. How are you both getting on?
Really good. Good to be back here, Joey.
Yeah, really, really good to be back here as well. Thank you for letting us be on the show again.
Most welcome. So, guys, let's kick it off. Let's talk sort of general recruitment trends that we've seen so far in 2023. It's been a year ups, downs. I'd say sort of in different market conditions. From my perspective. In my opinion, sort of the pendulum has sort of swung back to from maybe what was a candidate-driven marketplace, in the years the previous to this year, and I think it sort of swung back to sort of somewhere in the middle. But I want to throw it to you guys, because especially you both are sort of more on the candidate side of things. What have you seen this year, and how would you sort of sum up the year that was in recruitment?
You can go first, Levina. I can fill in the gaps.
I think in the market this year, I think companies are willing to have a look outside the box of like what type of candidates they want. Like sometimes when companies are trying to hire, they sometimes may want people from the direct industry. But this time we're seeing in the trend where they're kind of looking outside the box and seeing people outside the industry, I would say. I think candidate-wise, people are willing to take a bit of more leap of faith into different roles, stepping out of their comfort zone, trying new things, I would say. Do you want to touch on that maybe, Alan?
Yeah, that's really good observation. I would say, we've been doing this, Joey, for, I think you 7 years in Australia, me 8 years. And I think every year there's no easy year, no matter if it's a company-driven or a candidate-driven market. But I think more so this year than ever, companies are, having that back and forth conversation with us, understanding how to best solve their problem when it comes to talent. Before, I think they're really hell bent on, finding this right background for this job, and they're willing to wait for that long. But this time they're more focused on the culture. They're more focused on the attitude, the work ethic of the candidate more so than ever.
Do you think that's increased this year? Because I would say that was probably at its height last year. So where because there was such a shortage of candidates, every company was hiring. It was so competitive. It was almost companies were saying, "Give me anyone." I haven't got anyone, and it was just there was just so few active candidates. I think that's when we were consulting with companies. Let's have a look at maybe individuals that would fit the culture. I think it has sort of shifted back a little bit more this year to being a little bit more picky, because there are more candidates available. I think this year it has job adverts as a total has gone down, migration's gone up. So I think this year has been easier to find candidates, so there's probably been a bit less of that. I don't know. What do you think about
that? I think it depends on the company. So companies that we have that have the resource to train people, because of last year, it kind of opened their eyes to look at the potential of the candidate instead of the actual experience that they have at the moment. My dog's barking, so excuse that. But I think this year, depending on the company, they're more open. But for companies doesn't have that resource, the first choice will always be the experience. But it won't take them. It take them a shorter amount of time for them to look outside of it. They're always going to try to find the experience, but they're more willing and quicker to look at Plan B, just to make sure that they're not missing out on good candidates, but also understanding that they can wait for a long time for the right candidate, but they're going to lose business because no one's going to be looking after their customers.
Yeah. While there's more available candidates this year, I think that there is still a general skills shortage. So unemployment's still very low. So even though there's less opportunities out there, it's still hard to fill vacancies, right?
Yeah, but if you think about it, a lot of companies they're thinking about long term now. They're not thinking about next year. They're not only thinking about this year. Imagine if they're only going to be willing to take on people from their industry. They're going to run out of candidates, and they're not going to be cultivating the next wave of talent that they need to survive the market. It's very competitive. Our market in Australia is quite smaller than the US, smaller than the other markets. So I think they're looking for more of a like you said, Joey, the long game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely, I think there's definitely been a trend this year. That some of the clients that we've worked with, they've been a lot more open and receptive to maybe taking on a junior candidate, someone with less experience, someone who's even we've had a bit of a trend of graduates looking to get into the workforce. In particular for sales, which is where our strength is and where the bulk of our roles are working on. What we talk to about our clients this year, I think for personally, I think the first time or the most I've seen where companies are realizing that they're in our particular industries of construction and industrial. It's not the gravy train won't last forever of experienced candidates. They do need to bring in that next wave of talent, and they're looking to that junior option and future proofing their sales teams.
100%.
I wanna bring in Lev here. So candidate behavior. You're on the phones, you're speaking and interviewing candidates day in, day out. I want to talk about and ask you about what you've seen mainly from like a motivation standpoint. So when you're speaking to candidates and asking about why and what's brought them to the job market, what has been their main driver? Do you feel like what's been either pushing them out of companies or attracting them to new ones?
I think attracting to new one, there'll be two key points. It will definitely be career progression and career growth. Them kind of like hitting a ceiling with a company that they've been at for a while and there's no room for them to grow anymore. And secondly, I believe also culture-wise, I have a lot of like candidates where I'll chat to them and go like, well, what was the main reason for you to be looking to leave? And they're like, look, honestly, like this is not the right fit for me because I don't really fit in with the culture. There's some things that goes against my morals and ethics and so forth. Sometimes I think less and less likely is the money. I have candidates wanting to move for the same money, but more looking for that career progression or even willing to take a step back from the money and looking for that career progression and the long-term gain type of thing, I would say.
That does surprise me a bit, the money piece, because we've all seen, the cost of living is rising. I would have thought, I don't know what you think, Adam, salary would be higher on that sort of, people are looking to, maybe their company can't offer them a raise or the salary that they're now looking to live on in current, rising cost of living. I would have thought salary would maybe be the main driver, but you're saying it's mainly, it might not be.
Well, if you think about it, during COVID, there's so many things that we experience in life, so many things that you missed on. Money is always important because of the interest rates, the cost of living is going up. But the problem of a lot of companies is actually quite simple. And what I find is it's all about communication. Companies are, working in a market that's very, number one, competitive. It's really difficult. But the most important thing for them, for a lot of candidates, is communication. Companies are not communicating with them when it comes to understanding what makes them tick in terms of motivation. A lot of companies, they assume that it will be, money, et cetera, but it's really about the culture, like Levina said. It's about being not just the number, but being part of a team, being your
Yeah.
voice heard, etc. So that's more important than money. There's a lot of high paying jobs out there, but it's high paying because it's stressful, because it's an important role. You have a lot of responsibility. Not everyone is looking for that extra responsibility. Sometimes their focus is family, right? Sometimes their focus is just to make sure that they can do other things outside of work. So if you assume that it's money, then you're always in the back foot already.
That the piece about the culture, being heard, it goes back to what's maybe a primal need for us as human beings, to be part of a team, to be part of something, to be around people who are doing the same sort of thing. And it sounds like maybe over the last few years, maybe that's been a trend where people are, maybe because of the pandemic, I don't know, disconnected a little bit with people. You need to be back with teams, and if a company, as you say, Lev, people are looking to leave because their current organizations aren't providing that. They're not being seen, they're not being heard. It sounds like that you might lose out on good people because of that. What do you guys think about what can companies be doing as we look towards the new year? So they might not lose, as you say, like they might lose good people if they're not doing the right things in terms of getting their team culture right. What would you guys advise to companies to maybe get that? I know it's a bit of a buzzword, and what does it actually mean? But culture, what would you advise to companies on that front?
You can go first, Lavina.
I think just goes back to the point what Adam said before, like communication. I think communicating with your staff members, your team members about, what is the plans for the next year? What is going to be the structure for next year? Like, are you guys, because when you have a team, you're meant to work cohesively together. You don't just want when someone just ordering around, go like, okay, you do this, do that. But you kind of want to bring the team together and go like, this is a goal that we want to aim together for next year. For example, we want to go into like certain markets, or we want to attract different customers type of thing. And just telling them, communicating if they are going to be on a bit of a rocky start or a rocky like year, just to communicate like, hey guys, like it's going to be a rocky start to the year. We have some of these internal things happening that may have a slow start, so maybe like we won't be able to progress people as much. But just talking to them, just telling them what's going on rather than them being in the dark. If they're left in the dark, it's just that suspense, and everyone in the team will just feel very anxious about the whole situation, about everything. What do you think, Adam?
That's bang on, Lev. I think you're talking about transparency. Correct me if I'm wrong. Transparency and get making sure everyone's in the loop. There's a couple of things actually. I think number one, like you said, communication. Number two is structure, because you communicate to understand what makes them tick, what they want, what's the actual situation of the company. Number two, you put a structure behind it so that whatever is spoken about, you can actually follow through. Because you can have meetings every Monday and not get anything done. But if you have a structure behind it, a skeleton, accountability or something to remind you, or making sure that everyone understand, okay, if I reach this milestone, I can get to the next level, if that's the motivation for that person. The number one point, communication, that's when you can pinpoint what actually motivates this person. For example, if you talk to me, my motivation is family. For me to look after my family, I need to do well with my job to earn money. But also at the same time, I need to make sure that I'm helping my team so that they can do well, and I can work in a positive environment. That's a big thing for me. It's not all about the money. But after that, without structure, how do we actually execute? How do we actually do that? The conversation that we have won't do anything until we action it.
Yeah, it's got to be, talk is cheap, right? That's the old saying. You can talk as much, but you got to actually deliver on that action. Culture, I always think, is less words. It's more, what are you actually doing about what you're saying? Really good stuff, guys. So we talked a little bit there about some general recruitment trends over the last year. I want to get a bit more personal. I want to get more personal with you both. Let's review the year a little bit in terms of how we've got on. Maybe a bit more performance related, some ups and downs. I think the year, as always in recruitment, there's been plenty of ups, there's been plenty of downs. There's been, we've had a lot of fun. There's been some challenges, but that's why we do it, I think. So let's, Adam, let's start with you. You've been doing this for a number of years now. We touched upon. You've had some good years,
Yes,
you've had some
yes,
not so
I'm
good
old.
years. How do you sort of sum up let's say your own personal performance? If you would give yourself a review of 2023, not just the numbers and that kind of stuff, but how do you feel? How do you feel this year has been? For yourself, maybe some highlights, some disappointments, and even some reflections moving forward.
That's a loaded question. That's not our questions, Joe. But I think I feel really good this year. Not like I said, I'm not focusing on numbers. This year especially because we got Levina to really hit the ground running, turn to something that's we want someone to be. We see the journey from the beginning to now. I take pride on that more so than my personal achievements, i.e., hitting targets, etc. It doesn't matter to me. But I think seeing the growth of the people around us and kind of teaching someone that's really powerful. If you can do that to other people down the road as well, Levina doing the teaching, that'll be a highlight always.
So it sounds like that growth, bringing Lev through the team, real highlight, and definitely deserve a lot of credit for that. What about any low points? Where have you been? Maybe you feel you've missed the mark a little bit, and anything you could have done a bit better? Do you think?
I think in terms of low points, I've been really busy this year. Um, my main goal at the beginning of the year is to be really organized, making sure that we work hard, but also we have the structure behind it, i.e., the numbers, etc. But I think where I can be better next year is by making sure that I'm across the board when it comes to dealing with candidates. Naturally, if you're really busy, if you're focusing on a lot of things, if you're making sure that everyone's happy, I think the sacrifice that I made this year is, I need to spend more time with the candidates when it comes to, calling them, and maybe instead of speaking to them for 5 minutes to give feedback, I could have spent 10 more minutes. But again, that's going to be a natural problem that you will have down the road, as the responsibilities go up. So it's my problem to find a process or a structure where it will lead me to, have more of that free time to spend more time with the candidates, which take the time as well from their time to from their day to interview with us, etc.
That's it. We've been doing it a long time. You're never the finished article. There's always stuff to be working on. And I appreciate the humility in acknowledging that. Lev, let's bring you in. Let's review 2023. Personally, your first full year in recruitment with us. I think there's been loads of successes. There's some challenging times as well. How do you sum it up?
I think when I first started, Joey, you said something to me like recruitment's a roller coaster, and I feel like I felt the full force of this roller coaster this year. There's lots of ups, lots of downs, and there's also lots of twists and turns. And I think it's just like there's some unexpected things, and just kind of like just riding it through, riding that roller coaster, and just going to the very low, and then waiting it for a peak again. I'll say. I think for me there was like a fair few highlights, and there was definitely a fair few low points. And I think with all those highlights and low points, I think I appreciate the low points a lot more because I learned a lot of things from it, and for me to be able to grow and accept it and go through it, I'll say.
Specifically, though, what are some highlights?
I think highlights will definitely be, working the full year, working lots of different roles. I would just definitely say like just not just the sales roles that I was used to, kind of going to the non-sales role, taking on to like maybe some admin support, customer service, just speaking to loads of different people. I'll say I really like making building those connections and everything. Highlight, I would say personally, just being able to hit my KPIs, and also recently we're able to go into a more higher position, like getting promoted to senior consultant. So that was a pretty big highlight for myself, to be able to really say like, oh, I can back myself on this type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think, the fact you hit your target, you got that promotion, and is a great achievement. But I think also, just to add on to that, the skills you developed. And we spoke about this last week when I was up in Sydney. If you compare yourself from now as a recruiter to where you were 12 months ago last December, it's chalk and cheese. It's it's almost you're a different person in terms of your skill set and how you've developed. So that's massive credit to you on that. I know there's been some bumps along the road, as well in the last 12 months. Any particular moments that you want to reflect on that maybe been challenging, but you maybe have learned from that stand out this year?
I reckon probably one specific low point is that like we try to help everyone we can, of course, like we try our best. However, sometimes there are things that are out of our control that we can't control, and sometimes it just happens. Like I think us three, we both went through it, and we had a great candidate, great for a role, and then suddenly things outside of our control kind of like happen, and we weren't able to help them get the job just due to XYZ factors. I guess I think one low point for myself was that I gotten feedback from a candidate, and it definitely struck me, and it made me to do better in the future, of course. And that was my fault. I should have followed up on it, and that's one thing that I do want to improve on is being more. I guess I'm attentive, but sometimes everyone makes mistakes, especially when we are going, looking after multiple roles, looking after multiple candidates. Some things kind of just goes under our nose, and that's something that I definitely will hold accountable to be more attentive, a bit more following up on things moving forward.
100%. And you mentioned you be accountable there. I think the main thing is you recognize that there was maybe something you could have done a little bit better. And you learn from it, and I'm sure and we've already seen, I think, since that particular example, how you've adapted your approach moving forward. So you're only human. All of us make mistakes. Like we were talking about Adam before, been doing this a long time, still got things to work on it. And if you're in this game and you think you're perfect, you think you're God's gift to recruitment and you're the finished article, then I'm no doubt that you're going to be, you're going to get a kick in the face from something, and it's going to come back and bite you. So you'll be humbled real quick. So look, I think it's important to talk about, stuff we can work on and mistakes just as much as your successes, if not more. So appreciate you guys sharing that. Me personally, like we touched on, it's been a great year for us as a team. It's been great to develop, Levina through the business, as Adam said, and see where you are today, from where you were. I think some of the numbers we posted, I'm really proud of. Also launched this podcast, so there's been a few wins along the way. For me personally, things to work on. I definitely want to. I feel I could have maybe developed my leadership skills in our business further, and there's going to be some lessons learned from me personally over the last 12 months that I'm going to reflect on and hopefully take forward on that front. Like I was just talking about, I'm definitely not the finished article on that piece. So that's the year that was. That's been really useful, guys. Really good to chat about 2023. For the final part of this review, this chat, I want to switch it up and talk the future. 2024, another year in recruitment looms. What? Firstly, let's talk maybe our market. I want to throw it to you guys. How do you feel from speaking to our customers and speaking to candidates? What do you feel? I know you don't have a crystal ball, but predictions for the general sort of job market as we roll into 2024. What do you think?
I think it's so like you said, we don't have a crystal ball. In terms of next year, I'm very optimistic about next year. If you just look at the economy as a whole, there's a the surplus in the government. For us, we were big in building and construction, and industrial. So for building and construction, there's going to be budgets for new projects, especially in the civil market. For us, that's good news and great news for our companies because it means that they have a lot to go after. Um, if I'm being a little more subjective, speaking to firstly the candidates are very optimistic about next year, because they a lot of our candidates this year, they have a really good year on a tough market. Next year, because of the cash rate, hopefully steadying and going down alongside my mortgage. Thank you, please. That's a little bit more, I suppose, space for growth for other companies. So there's going to be opportunities when it comes to vacancies, growth roles, and candidates are willing to take that next step. So I'm not only talking about sales; I'm talking about non-sales roles. So there's there's a bigger platform outside of sales for us. So I'm predicting to be next year to be tough because we're going to be working really hard to capitalize on hopefully a good opportunity next year.
Can I just pick on something you said there and just get a little bit specific, and in particular the market there? You mentioned one area of the market, civil construction, to be hopefully buoyant, and there's going to be more projects released, and I'm hearing that as well. Civil infrastructure projects is going to be a good space to play in over the next sort of couple of years. What about other areas of construction? Because what I'm seeing and hearing, speaking to customers, maybe more in the residential and commercial spaces, is going to remain a bit sluggish. That's the word that's been bounced about quite a lot. I'm hearing the sort of the residential, the pipeline of projects is sort of set to be completed sort of maybe March-ish time next year in 2024, and not much more in the pipeline. That's just the residential space. What are you hearing, if we talk specifically here, construction, about those particular areas, residential, commercial?
So if you think about when you say residential, commercial, first thing that comes to mind is new houses, housing development, etc. The way I'm looking at it is more from the renewable space. So if you think about this, I don't know if this is the direction you want to go into, but if you just analyze it, there's a big push for EV and renewable energies. So even the residential, let's say the residential market, there's going to be a lot of work when it comes to the infrastructure to support the EVUs. So that's going to be a big, massive project for the government. For commercial, you can look at it in different ways. Commercial, that's related to the industrial manufacturing because that is still commercial. And if there's going to be a push to bring manufacturing back to Australia, I'm not sure if it's going to be next year. If it's next year, because of the lack of the residential projects, then there's going to be a big opportunity when it comes to building and construction, when it comes to the commercial side of things, when it comes to that. If we're talking about high-rise buildings like commercial high-rise hotel, etc., I'm not sure. It's hard to really say because they mostly are private businesses or private investors that would decide whether they want to kickstart their project. But if you think about the specs and the think about the pipeline of jobs, it's hard to predict because, like I said, it's private businesses. But if we just look at the market as a whole, where it's moving, because of the renewable push and the industrial manufacturing push, there will be a lot of optimism when it comes to that.
I think the commercial piece in the commercial market, it will definitely come back. It's just whether it will come back in the next year or so, or when it will come back.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know. We just need to be, you know, prepared for the opportunity. You know, if you're only preparing for that opportunity when it comes, then it's too late.
The renewable market you mentioned about, looking to be a real growth market. I know it's set to be one of the fastest growing industries in the next 10 years. It's set to be also one of the highest rates of employing people in Australia over the next 10 years. For anyone who may not know, what's causing that?
Well, number one, because of the EV push from the government. There's a lot of benefits for owning EV. It's kind of like if your company can support it, it's a no-brainer. But people that's going into that bandwagon of EV, the infrastructure out of the CBD area, there's a there's a big opportunity there. I know someone who owns a Tesla, out west, around my area, actually, St. Clair, because they drive quite a lot. Unless they are living in a house and can install an EV charger, they would have to travel 20 minutes or, an hour away to hopefully get on a charger. So, and let's say you have a residential house, right? You don't only install an EV charger, you can install a solar system that can support that EV charger. So if you just think about that in a macro level and then look at it at the macro level, that's where the opportunity is coming from, because it's getting integrated with society. Hence the reason why, companies within that space, they're looking at, they're looking to hire a lot of people to support that growth.
Cool, man. We've talked there about some industry stuff, some predictions there, in particular for the next, for the future. If we talk personal stuff, let's bring you in here. Let's talk maybe some of your, your goals, maybe some predictions for yourself in 2024. What can we really expect to see from you? What areas? Are you looking to develop yourself as a recruiter, as a salesperson? Like I said, what can we expect to see from you next year?
I think a big goal for next year is definitely is like learning more things, making more mistakes. I know that sounds really, really bad, but the thing is just like, I think Joe, you said to me last week when you came out, you just fail more. That way you can learn more, and that way I can like kind of accept it more. For me, I'm kind of a more emotionally driven person, as you both know. I always whinge and complain to you and vent to you, but I think for me it's to kind of like taking a step back and look at the bigger picture. It's like, is it bigger than life? And kind of just take it on the chin and just like accept it and like take accountability, move on type of thing. But at the same time is like just doing my job better than I did this year, and then keep on improving on the skill set that I've been growing on, and just keep on growing within the company, helping out with like our other colleagues within our team, even our junior colleague and over in the other place as well, just helping them grow as well. And hopefully we get to grow the team a little bit more with another person in a team, working with yourself, Joe, and just working closely with your team and having a better year next year. Because it's not going to be a perfect year, because it always can do better.
I don't want to put you, no, of course. I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but is there like a particular skill? Like you mentioned, you want to develop your skills. And I want to get this is for, so it's on record. Is there a particular skill set or particular skill as a recruiter, you're really looking to improve on next year?
Confident to back myself up, and just to show like I can actually do it. And this year has been an evidence that I can do it, but it's just to back myself up more, be not afraid to be myself, I guess. Be more than myself, and just kind of like go like, I can do this, and not double think like, oh, like I'm not good at this or anything. Like, sometimes we all have those blue days, but for me, I kind of get like overthink it and just kind of just believe in myself that I can actually do the job and take next year type of into the lengths that we can grow to. What do you guys see?
Adam, I want to bring you in on that. Yeah, Adam, I want to bring Adam on in that because he is, I would say, a confident chap. You know, you do often, portray an image of confidence, especially in the world of recruitment. But I know it's not something you've always, managed to master. What advice would you give to Lev on that front, developing that confidence in the role?
I think confidence is something that, I think Lev, you already are confident because you already proved yourself. You already show that day in, day out. But I think when I first started with BMS, or when I first came to Australia when I was 15, 2005, 2005, I'm not the most confident person because I'm very anxious about and very self-conscious about my Filipino accent. I went to a school where I'm the only one who's, I came year 9 and everyone knew everyone, since kindergarten. So it was a challenge. But then as I experience the outside world and deal with people, I kind of have to force myself to try different things. Actually study it. Actually try to see how people would react if I talk this way. Um, and if I just related to BMS day one, I'm nervous. I'm shaking. But my manager at that time asked me, "All right, do you want to make phone calls today, first day, or do you want to just do it next week once you read all the theories, blah blah blah?" But I was like, "Let's just do it today." I'm nervous. I'm not confident, but I just wanted to experience right there and then. But whilst I, when I'm doing it, no one really is listening to me. They're more listening to you to help you improve. It's really more about the environment as well. Are you not confident because you're scared of being criticized negatively? But for a fact, Levina, that people around you, they're there to support you and to be a positive reinforcement, to be a positive influence to your, I suppose, development. So I think I can't tell you to be confident and you'll be confident. I think I can only reassure you that the people around you, we're here for you to succeed.
100%.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's great advice. It's great advice. I think, like we spoke about, it's about just stacking that evidence behind you that you can do it, and ultimately it does just build up over time. Once you have built up over time, it does build confidence. Exactly like Adam said in those examples. While you're on a roll there, mate, I'm going to keep it with you. What are you mentioned you're optimistic about 2024, and I love to hear it. What are you? What's your sort of mindset going into the new year? What are your things that is there like something that's on your mind, like this is what I need to do next year, like, or this is some particular thought train or something you really want to work on next year? What's front of mind for you as we roll into 2024?
As you guys know, I'm taking on an extra role of head of operations for Talent Forge, and when you say operations, the first thing that usually comes to mind back in the day for me is like, oh right, a lot of admin, a lot of paperwork, blah blah blah. But for me, it's an exciting role because I can help you guys focus on the things that you actually need to do to perform well on your job. For example, getting vacancies, providing value to your clients and candidates, focusing on finding the right candidate for the vacancies that we have. And, my main focus next year will be how do I make you guys your life a little bit easier when it comes to the process? Instead of spending your time on sheets, making a list, understanding what you need to do. Hopefully I can put a system around you guys that would just make you guys get on the phone or get interviews straight away instead of just doing all the ad hoc things. Me personally, there's two things that I would like to make sure that I'm on top of next year. Make sure that I divide my time when it comes to the operations, but also the development for Levina, and whoever the next team members that we have. But also at the same time making sure that I'm still helping the company make some revenue at the same time. So that's a lot of things to juggle. And lastly, LinkedIn presence. That's something that I can work on. Joe's been harping on about it, but next year will be, hopefully my, consistency will be there.
There it is, on record. I've got it.
Brilliant. My mistake.
Just on that, so those three things you mentioned there: the operations, the management, the mentoring, and then still the putting runs on the board job. I completely agree. I think that is going to be your biggest challenge, balancing those three. How do you plan to do that?
I think this year I've been doing quite a lot of balancing already. Um, when it comes to Levina, when it comes to making sure that we understand the numbers, but also making sure that the candidates and the client side of things, they're still happy. I think I did that this year to some degree. Next year, making sure that I talk a lot about structure. For me, I'm a very I like routine, and then I need to have a time where it can be a little bit flexible. So time management for me will be the key. I don't do a lot of things outside of work, making sure that I'm fresh when it comes to work. So making sure that I switch off when I need to switch off, so that when we start working, I'm 100% in.
Yeah, that leads me really nicely onto what I was going to say, and just some predictions for me for next year. I think someone who can. I'm just talking generally here as a recruiter. If you're listening, you want to succeed next year. The people who manage to, because we live in a very sort of distracted world, these days. People who can sort of manage to block their time, avoid distractions, have the right systems and structures in place so that they show up on time, put the reps in, and divide their time into whatever they need to do without sort of getting distracted and pulled away from various different things, while also investing in key relationships in your industry. That's something that I'm looking to really focus on and double down on, because market could be indifferent next year. We're not sure. The investment of deep-seated key relationships within your industry is going to be very important if you work in recruitment. If you don't necessarily have that, and if you don't have what Adam says, the structures and systems in place to sort of churn out the reps, because 2024 isn't going to be won over the first week of January. It's going to be your ability to show up again and again and again and again over weeks, months, for you to have a successful year.
Can I just add one thing on that one, Joey?
Shoot.
You talk about I'm hungry, I'm driven. I'll do whatever. I'll work hard for you. That's well and good. You have a lot of energy. You might do all those things, but if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a general, I suppose, direction in terms of what you actually want to achieve, that energy can be so dispersed and not focused. You won't be able to get to where you want to go, at a faster rate or even at all, at that goal, and you might burn out. So having goals and a plan will be a good start.
And it goes back to what you were saying about, having a goal is great, but you mentioned earlier about the reason you come into work is you want to provide for your family. That's your purpose. That's your overarching why. And if you don't have one of them, and if you're still figuring it out, then you might struggle. As you say, you can have all the energy in the world. Motivation comes and goes, though. You can be motivated. Everyone can be motivated for an hour, for a day, but to be able to churn it out over weeks, you need to have something deep-seated.
100%.
Guys, thank you very much for joining me on my show. Really love catching up with you and chewing the fat, all things recruitment, and reviewing the year, and throwing out some predictions and thoughts ahead of the year ahead. I couldn't have done this year without you guys. I really appreciate both of you. I look forward to the hopeful years and months ahead, working hard.
I love you too, mate.
Love you guys.